Okay, let's dive in. There's this really profound idea right at the start here that humans are, well, fundamentally believing beings.
Mm-hmm.
We're supposedly the only creatures aware that we're aware, and this kind of forces us onto this lifelong search for meaning for our essence.
Exactly. And if you look historically, our sources argue pretty convincingly that this search, mostly driven by belief and faith, it's been the single most powerful force behind human thought, human action.
So that's our mission for this deep dive, right? To unpack the psychology of faith.
Precisely. And importantly, we're not here trying to prove or disprove any religion. That's not the point.
No.
We want to understand how this whole phenomenon of belief, this idea of something transcendent, how it actually shapes your inner world, your thoughts, your feelings, even how you cope with things.
Right, your psychological life. And okay, before we get any deeper, we need to get clear on two key terms. They often get mixed up.
Yeah, that's crucial.
Our sources draw a really careful line between the general idea of belief, sometimes called inans in certain traditions, and the more specific, often religious concept of faith or iman.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the real difference there? What do we need to keep in mind?
Okay, so think of belief anons as the broader, more cognitive thing. It's basically sticking to an idea or a thought. You
Yeah.
know, you believe gravity exists. It's mental acceptance.
Okay, intellectual agreement.
Right. But faith, and iman, its root actually means to trust, to give confidence. It's much more specific. It really emphasizes that heartfelt approval, that deep confidence, and importantly, emotional commitment. It's belief you live by.
Ah, okay, so belief is I think this is true, but faith is more like, I'm committing to this, I trust this. It has that element of maybe action or reliance built in.
Exactly right. And the thing that really sets religious faith apart, according to these sources, is its object, the unseen. They call it Gabe.
The unseen. Gabe.
Yeah, a reality that's just fundamentally beyond what our senses can pick up, beyond what typical logic or empirical reason can grasp.
Wow, okay. That changes things, doesn't it? If the thing you have faith in can't be seen or measured, well, your mind has to find a whole new way to relate to it.
Absolutely. It becomes less of a static belief and more of a dynamic, ongoing relationship.
A relationship, like one source mentioned Martin Buber, that I to thou idea.
Exactly that. It's like a living contract with the unseen. And to keep that unique relationship going, religious faith needs basically three interconnected psychological dimensions. It involves your whole self.
Okay, three dimensions. Let's break those down. First one is about the mind, right? The thinking part.
That's the cognitive dimension, acceptance and ratification. Basically, accepting revealed truths as certain, even if they seem beyond our everyday understanding.
So you accept it intellectually.
Yes, but it's not just passive acceptance, like reading a fact. The sources really stress that you need some inner preparation for this. An openness of mind is required before you can truly accept it.
Okay, openness and acceptance. But, I mean, accepting something is one thing.
Yeah.
How do you keep going when that relationship demands maybe huge sacrifices? That must take willpower.
And that leads straight to the second dimension, the volitional dimension, the
well-
will. It's about actively aligning your behavior with what your faith asks, the commands, the prohibitions.
The will to believe idea, like William James talked about.
Precisely. This is where the rubber meets the road, psychologically speaking. It demands conscious self-surrender, real self-control. You have to constantly filter your immediate desires, your passions, through the lens of your commitment.
Oof, that sounds exhausting. That constant inner friction between what you want right now and what your faith demands. If there's always friction, what stops people from just giving up?
Well, that brings us to the third dimension, which many sources say is the most essential, the emotional dimension. This is all about trust, love, and sacrifice.
Correct.
Trust is absolutely central. Some even define faith almost entirely as trust and commitment. It includes things like love, patience, reliance, sometimes called devekul, that complete reliance on the transcendent.
And this emotional part is what gives you resilience.
Exactly. It's the psychological scaffolding. It provides that deep buffer against, existential fear, despair, the kind of sadness that can paralyze you when really bad things happen in life.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so if faith is this dynamic three-part structure, it can't just be static, right?
Yeah.
It has to evolve as we evolve.
Absolutely. And if you connect this to the bigger picture of human development, faith changes quite dramatically across the lifespan. It's tied directly to how we grow intellectually and personally.
And James Fowler's stages of faith development help visualize this.
Yes, his work is really useful here. He proposed 6 hierarchical stages, building on people like Piaget and Kohlberg in cognitive development.
And I think it's important he defined faith pretty broadly too, right? Not just about organized religion.
Definitely. Fowler saw faith as how you find meaning, how you commit trust and loyalty to whatever you see as your ultimate center of value or power. It's about your whole orientation to life.
Okay, so what are the key stages, especially the points where things get challenging?
Well, it starts early. You have the mythic literal stage, maybe ages 6 to 12. Kids take religious stories and symbols very literally as absolute fact.
Like Santa Claus, but for religion.
Sort of, yeah. Then, moving into the teens, you hit the synthetic conventional stage. Here, beliefs are mostly absorbed, kind of uncritically, from important people around you, parents, peers, the community. It's like a borrowed ideology.
Right. You believe it because they believe it, which sets you up
For the big shift, the individuative reflective stage, usually starting late teens, early 20s. Stage 4, this is where you're often forced, maybe by going to college, starting work, moving out, to actually step back.
to question things.
Exactly. You have to question those inherited beliefs, examine them, and consciously choose your own values, your own commitments. Authority shifts from out there, what others told you, to in here, your own internal compass. It's the birth of what Fowler called autonomous faith.
You have to kind of take it apart to make it your own. And after that big struggle, does faith become more nuanced?
Very much so. That leads into the conjunctive stage, maybe starting around age 30 or later. Stage 5 is about integrating paradoxes, accepting that life and faith are full of contradictions, multiple layers of meaning. You get comfortable with ambiguity and symbolism.
And the final stage, universalizing.
Stage 6, universalizing faith. Fowler thought this was quite rare. It's characterized by a kind of radical, selfless commitment to justice and love, often challenging the status quo. Think of figures like Gandhi or Mother Teresa. But it's hard to study empirically because so few seem to reach it.
Okay, that's a helpful map of development.
Very.
Now, let's shift gears slightly. You mentioned the difference between thinking and feeling about the transcendent. Let's explore that. The God concept versus the God image.
Yes, this is a really vital distinction for understanding the psychology here. They're related, but different.
So the God concept is?
The God concept is the intellectual stuff. It's what you learn in theology, in scripture, the formal doctrines and attributes of God. It develops through learning, thinking, conscious reflection.
Like the blueprint.
Kind of, yeah. But the God image, that's different.
How so?
The God image is your personal emotional experience of God. It's that subjective sense, the feeling-based design of God that lives inside you. It's often unconscious, deeply rooted. Psychologically, it functions like an inner guide or the system you use to make sense of life.
Okay, so concept is head, image is heart, maybe. But if God is unseen, as we said, where does the emotional raw material for that image come from?
Well, the strong argument, especially from thinkers like Anna Maria Rizzuto, is that it comes from our earliest relationships. Primarily, yes. Rizzuto adapted some Freudian ideas, arguing that the mother's face, the mother relationship, is often the very first emotional building block for the God image. The child essentially borrows qualities from the most powerful present regulating figures they know, typically mother and father, to create this internal template.
So maybe the mother figure contributes feelings of love, compassion, safety, trust.
Right. And the father figure might contribute notions of power, authority, rules, control.
Interesting.
And this is key. It's not like a fixed photograph taken in childhood. This God image is dynamic. It keeps changing, evolving based on new experiences, your intellectual growth, your current relationships.
Those big life events could reshape it, like losing a parent or maybe reaching that stage 4 of questioning everything.
Absolutely, or even just encountering a new theological idea that resonates deeply. It's constantly being reworked, consciously or unconsciously.
Which sounds like it could create a lot of internal tension if faith is always changing and the image is shifting.
Yeah.
What about doubt? We often think of doubt as negative, like the opposite of faith.
Yeah, but the sources suggest that's not quite right. Doubt is more like a state of tension, a temporary indecision. But it's not inherently bad.
How so?
In a positive sense, doubt is actually the engine of growth. It's that necessary psychological friction that pushes you from one stage, maybe a comfortable but unexamined stage, to a higher, more personally owned level of faith.
So it's the discomfort that makes you move from just imitating belief to actually possessing it.
Exactly. It forces you to ask why. Why trust? Why believe this? That questioning is essential for moving through those developmental stages we talked about.
Okay, so it's necessary friction. Are there different kinds of doubt that people experience?
Yeah, we can sort of categorize them. There's searching doubt. This is more like simple curiosity, maybe non-critical, just looking for answer that makes sense. You see it in kids or when someone is exploring a new faith tradition.
Okay, genuine seeking. What else?
Then there's what some call selfish doubt. This is really about disappointment. It happens when someone views faith primarily as a tool to get stuff, health, wealth, success, and when their prayers aren't answered exactly as they expect, they get disillusioned.
Right, faith is a transaction that didn't pay out. And what about the more intellectual struggles?
That's often termed conceptual doubt. This comes up when people struggle with religious language itself, concepts that seem vague, ambiguous, or contradictory.
Like trying to make sense of metaphors.
Precisely. A common issue, especially today, is trying to interpret symbolic or metaphorical religious language literally, maybe trying to apply scientific standards to it. That mismatch causes real psychological difficulty. You can't really use the language of the concept, the intellectual part, to fully capture the felt experience of the image.
That makes sense. Okay, let's talk about the impact then. We've established this God image is emotionally rooted, often from childhood. How does the quality of that image play out in someone's adult psychological life? What are the positive effects?
Well, research suggests that a generally positive, benevolent, supportive God image, one focused on mercy, love, protection, acts like a psychological bridge. It connects your inner world to outer reality in a healthy way.
Oh,
It tends to reduce anxiety, strengthen your core sense of self, and support what psychologists call basic trust, feeling the world is generally a safe place. Studies actually show a correlation between high self-esteem and a more positive, nurturing God image.
Okay, so a loving internal image helps you feel better about yourself and the world. What about the flip side? A negative image.
That has significant negative consequences. A God image that's primarily critical, demanding, judgmental, or angry that tends to fuel anxiety. It fosters basic mistrust, and it's strongly linked with poorer mental health outcomes, feelings of inadequacy, guilt, shame.
Wow. So the emotional feeling of the image can have a more direct impact on your well-being than the intellectual concept you hold.
Often, yes. The immediate psychological impact seems tied more closely to that internal felt image.
Which really underlines the importance of how these ideas are presented, maybe culturally, the need for balance.
Absolutely. Many traditions recognize this need for psychological balance. For instance, in Islamic thought, there's often an emphasis on balancing the God image between poles of, say, fear and hope.
Fear and hope.
Yeah, acknowledging God's justice and power, which might evoke a healthy sense of awe or fear of consequences, but also his immense mercy, forgiveness, and love, which fosters hope and trust. That tension, that balance, is seen as psychologically grounding. It keeps you from becoming reckless, but also from falling into despair.
Fascinating. Okay, so wrapping this up, we've really seen today that faith isn't just a simple yes or no. It's this incredibly complex, dynamic, three-dimensional psychological process.
It evolved throughout life. It's deeply shaped by our earliest relationships, our culture, and it has these distinct cognitive, volitional, and especially emotional parts.
And that necessary tension, that doubt, it's actually part of the growth process, pushing us towards a more mature, integrated understanding.
Right. It's a living relationship, constantly in flux.
So as we close out this deep dive, maybe a final thought to chew on. The sources we looked at identify a kind of ultimate psychological threat. What is it?
It's described as the state of profound loneliness, anxiety, and meaninglessness that can be experienced by someone who completely rejects or just becomes indifferent to any kind of spiritual or transcendent dimension of life. The perspective is that without some connection to a principle larger than oneself, the individual might lack the deep internal resources needed to really withstand life's challenges, the physical struggles, the moral temptations.
So the provocative question we leave you with is this. What does it really mean for you to define the limits of your own self-sufficiency in the face of all that? Where do your resources truly come from? Something to think about.